biometrics on it. You can see the graphs. So you see there is an exponential growth from 2006 onwards in what were published on sustainability. So sustainability is on the table now. We are discussing about sustainability. So this is basically what we studied so far. I mean, this is how we were thinking about marketing. You have too many instances in this very simple-minded draw. You have production in one side and you have consumption in your other side. And between the two, what connects them we call this as intermediaries. And then we have interactions between companies that are producing, and then you have the B2B marketing. And you have too many studies on it. Then you have all the marketing channels that connect the production and consumption, what we call intermediaries. And then we have, finally, a person there, he's drinking coffee or tea, if he's in India, but he is the consumer. And then you have consumption and production. And this used to be how we look after the market relations. This is how we study this. And to be honest to you, we were very good in doing this. We developed a lot of theories, we developed a lot of understanding how it works. But we need to think how to connect consumption to production. This is another point. Probably you already heard about the 3 R's. Recycle, reuse, wherever. But this is how we need to reconnect this. And then when you look after this new graph, when you have production from one side, we have energy consumption and we have waste production. On the other hand, we have consumption and we have energy consumption and waste generation. We are producing waste. And how do we can reconnect it to each other to make it a better place for us to live? There is no such way that we can keep doing as we did in the past. One interesting example that I brought to you is that in Brazil we have a supermarket chain that aims to the high income level people. And we, as I told before, we were very good in develop theories, in develop ways to go to the market and be successful. Companies are very good in doing this, and I'm sure that Nokia has a lot of good examples about it, how to go to the market and be good. And then we developed packaging. So we have packaging. Let's consider the most simple-minded example we can. A toothpaste. Toothpaste is a tube, and this tube is inside a carton package. So what do you do? What do you guys do with the package after you buy it? You throw it away. So we have consumption and we are generating waste that can be or could be utilized to be under production again. So this is specific supermarket chain. What they did, in the end of the checkout, after you pay out, there is a big box where you can throw away the package you don't need. So if you don't need the package of your toothpaste, you can throw it away. So you bought cereals. So you have the plastic bag with the cereals in, and then you have the carton package that is holding this. And then if you look after to see how your grandmother and how your grand-grandmother used to go to the market and shop, the package was... We have to consider this when we talk about green marketing. Otherwise, we will be on the greenwashing side of the business, saying that's green, green, and green. And you see, sustainability is a very broad concept. And sustainability is founded in 3 basic foundation pillars: economic, social, and environment. And when you look at after this, with a perspective from a practitioner from a perspective of a researcher, you see there's many interactions between the 3, and also when you have two of them connected, let's say economically and social, you have to consider that all decisions that you are going to take in terms of sustainability, they must be equitable. And the same way, they must be viable, they must be equitable, bearable. And then you have to consider from the social point of view, the standard of living, the education, community, equal opportunity, so on and so far as you can read in this slide. So this is a very good opportunity for us in this session to, that's why I picked this kind of slides to talk to you, to give this a little bit open-eyed session to see, okay, we are being very good in what we're doing, and now we have to use all the knowledge that we produced so far to go and advance more steps in front of you. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Marcel, and setting the stage for the sustainability and defining it, and also giving a historical background about it. And now, after having establishing the stage, now we have what the practitioner world is doing. Companies like Nokia, since they come from a country which is very conscious about sustainability, and the Scandinavian countries anyways have been both on the social front as well as on the environmental front. They have been historically combining all these three values. And Paranshu is going to talk about the future, how will it look like with sustainability as one of the dimensions coming in and consumption patterns.
Thank you for the regime. And thank you, Marcel, for laying a fantastic foundation, because you have kind of really talked about the history. I'm going to talk about the future. So what do we expect? So I think it was good that, our order says, and I can build upon what you already discussed. This is a fantastic talk on what happens with consumption and how do we deal with it. So, hello everyone, I'm Pranshu. I have been with Nokia for almost 10 years now, trying different sorts of experiments with sustainability across different parts of the world. And I share with you, not today Nokia's examples, but primarily, what to expect from the future. And what kind of work should we anticipate from organizations, from different institutions, and where is thought leadership of the future to be found. So I will be primarily talking about that. And then in case you would like to discuss an example from the organization, during the course of the debate and discussions, we can kind of do that. So, place many products by using a single product. And you can, at the same time, produce more with less. Think of phones which were as large as what they were to what they are now, and the kind of functionality which a phone actually delivers. And so can be said for almost any sector. So here you are combining eco-efficiencies, and really talking about really eco-efficiencies. But then there is a second part which is kind of not talked about, which is consuming better and wiser. And it has kind of been completely left out in debate. It's in a very, very recent past where there have been discussions around it on how do we enable better consumption, and what is better consumption for that matter. Because it's a very paradoxical situation for a company like ours to say, consume less. So, but it's the right question. And actually everyone needs to discuss about it, because if we have to create a sustainable context for tomorrow, then debate needs to happen today. Packaging design. So any sort of design happens here. Whether it is end-of-life design, whether it is recycling design, whether it is disassembly design, but everything has to be tackled at this stage. And then you start going into the whole sourcing part of the products. So where do I source my components from? What are the practices of the suppliers? For example, Nokia has over 900 direct suppliers, and if I, in over 9 tiers of different suppliers. If we start, so it's almost impossible for you to kind of even pierce the 9 layers of the supply chain. So how do you kind of control? What kind of mechanisms do you create to do that? And then you have your own operations where you may be doing it. For Nokia, it means assembly of the products. For others, it may mean complete manufacturing. So how do you create a zero waste, zero discharge sort of a plant, which is kind of, the important thing. And finally, once you have sold your products, how do you get them back from the market? For example, let's build upon the example of toothpaste. Now, someone has sold the toothpaste. Now, what happens with the packaging? Packaging is just one thing. First of all, do you even need packaging? So you can eliminate it right in the design phase, that there is actually no need of the cardboard box. And in fact, in most European nations, it has been banned, especially for the FMCG products, that you don't need to have 2 layers of packaging. So there is no additional functionality of it. So by design, actually, you can manage the impacts from packaging. So actually, how do you kind of then enable consumers to understand what are the environmental implications of the consumption of the product that they are consuming, and what should they do once it expires, once it completes its life cycle? So, for example, for phones, what should a person do once it has reached its end of life? So it's dead. I'm not saying working phones, because they can still be sold, but phones which are dead, what do you do with them at the end of their life? And then, the whole recycling technology, how do you source materials back from this urban mine rather than, go to natural mines? How do you source all these materials and use them for making fresh products, whether they are mobile phones or, any other product for that matter? So, for a mobile phone, for example, this typically is the distribution of energy impacts. So where does the energy consumption happen? So if you see, 25% of energy consumption, and in fact this is true for most electronic products, that 1/3 to 1/3 of your life cycle energy consumption happens in the use phase. So how do you manage, which is completely dependent on consumer behavior? So how are people utilizing the product? And most of it is actually going waste as standby energy consumption. So for a TV, it's almost 70%. In total life cycle energy consumption, we say 70% is lost as standby energy losses. When you shut off your TV just using a remote, it is still consuming 40% power which it would otherwise when it were on. That's a huge loss. You could just otherwise shut the whole plug off instead of just switching it off via remote control. So how do you manage those things, and how do you convey these kind of messages to consumers so that they can take the right action? However, now I'll start going into the future. This is kind of still on the present side. What is the transformation that we are seeing, and what is it that we are believing in? There are great signs of it happening. So what we are starting to see is that thought leadership is shifting. It used to be that if you were a great producer with fantastic green products, you would have, you would be ranked very high. However, they are, increasingly we are seeing that this is starting to shift. Organizations who are not just doing this, not to say that this is left out, but on top of this, whosoever is kind of also taking the steps to making sure that the consumption is happening at the right level, and the whole context for the sustainable consumption is set, is kind of getting or being recognized as a thought leader. We have example from, for example, Unilever. We have example from Patagonia, which I really like. They launched this campaign last year, which was "Don't buy this jacket." It was a fantastic campaign because they kind of asked consumers to not buy the jacket if they don't need it. It's a very paradoxical kind of a thing, and in fact the results are very odd. This jacket sold the most at the end of the day. So again, it's a societal paradox in some way, but the message which Patagonia was kind of again and again trying to say is that buy things that you only need. And they also did one change in this specific jacket, that they asked, they gave free lifetime repair of the jacket. So if your zip goes bad, come and get it repaired for free. If stitching goes bad, come and get it done again. So that they included it's a huge idea towards promoting sustainable consumption and altering the consumption patterns as they are today. Again, if I talked about Unilever, how do you go and confront systemic challenges? That's the key today. It's not about just doing your own production work in a good way and coming out with a product which is carbon free, water neutral, and so forth. That is good,
But because the population is growing and the consumption is growing, you need to do something more. And consumer expectations are changing, especially in the last 3 years. And I'm talking of very short timeline. Short timeline now. We have changed exponential changes in the way people react, in the way people's expectations from different organizations are coming. So consumers, and this slide kind of is based on a very thorough survey, which has said, which states that the preparedness to reward and punish has moved very fast post 2010. So no more I'm going to take any shit from anyone. If you do something wrong, I'm going to punish you now. You're not going to wait. And another thing is the expectations on what is the purpose or why a company exists is also changing very significantly, dramatically in fact. Now this is a slide, and I was quite astonished. This is an internal Nokia slide, and we do certain consumer research surveys, and this is from 2012, and the results were astonishing because India, almost 58% people saying that I prefer an environmentally sound product. Not sure, but again, saying is one thing, doing is another. So especially in environmental questionnaires, you see a lot of answers which are very far away from reality because people want to be away from they want to be guilt-free, at least in statements. So, but again, even if this reflects the mood of the society, it may not be reality, but it's still giving a huge sign of what is going to come. More and more population is starting to move towards, and especially emerging markets. So, in fact, the next slide actually shows what is the impact on the brand of different environmental activities or different environmental and social attributes of the organization, significantly changing, running at a pace unheard of. So India stands at 72% or 70% of the people who were surveyed say that this is something that I care for. Significant numbers. And so another survey which was done by National Geographic very recently, this one is 2012, but again repeated in 2013. This is something which has come out consistently. Who is going to do the changes? Things are in bad shape. The first answer is corporations. Which puts a huge responsibility on people like us, people who we all represent. So how do we kind of take this and make it work? In fact, increasingly what we are seeing is that the governmental responsibility is kind of being counted less and less. It's more on that the corporations, the most trusted organizations of the world have to do something about it. That's the only way that things will move. And there is also a good change in regulatory reason. So in India, for example, we are seeing movement from a purely manufacturing focused regulation, which were the traditional Air Acts, Water Acts, hazardous waste rules, to product focused regulations. Very recently, for example, the e-waste rules were launched, to the BE Energy Star rating, very product specific, to now an encompassing sort of a rule, which is this CSR implications of the company's bill. So that every company has to spend 2%. So it goes, if you think about it, it is now moving beyond your own products in some way. So what is the need for an organization today, considering all these trends, is that there have to be new ways in which you engage people, which kind of means that you have to develop experiential and collaborative relationships beyond the purchase of product. That is not good enough. Just selling a product and providing good consumer support or customer support is not good enough. You need to go beyond. You need to develop a relationship which is beyond that. And we, for example, have started using this term called brand environmental responsibility, which is beyond product environmental responsibility, that this is something which should be complemented with life cycle thinking. Until you do so, things are not going to move forward. So what is kind of here, I'm trying to just differentiate a bit between life cycle thinking, because my personal view is that life cycle thinking essentially focuses on making production patterns sustainable. Whereas brand environmental responsibility is more on using brand attributes, your distribution networks, your trust, and so forth to bring a huge change in the societal context. And even the core, so for life cycle thinking, the core is the product itself. I mean, how do I make the product better? Whereas for brand environmental responsibility, it's all about people. People with whom I'm dealing. The organization is centered around creating something for people. So how do I work with that core group? How do I evolve in a new direction? So what we are calling is that, this whole new paradigm of thought leadership is very wholesome in nature. It is not issue-based. Issues are important, but it is beyond issue-based. So you have to cover all the issues first, and then close all the life cycle work, and then kind of start building the social context in which people can make sustainable decisions. So, in short, a wholesome leader, which is the future thought leader, is a leader who produces better and more with less, and enables and empowers consumption of lesser goods, and in a wiser way. So, in the future, that is 5 years, 10 years down the line, this is where I see a big thought leadership existing. So moving from purely issue-based, so till now, for example, you may have seen, in fact, greenwashing at the time. I mean, a lot of people are claiming, okay, my product is water neutral, my facility is carbon neutral, but that's a issue-based leadership. That's not a wholesome leadership.
Sustainable Development Conference in Johannesburg 2005 got Kyoto, which was became an foreseeable instrument, and Rio Plus 20 2012. So many of these kinds of conventions which have happened in the past, of course there is a concern, that's what Marcelo said, and there is a real concern, and we are seeing the consequences also these days. But the most important question then starts coming is that who would go and force the companies to change? Okay. Of course, regulators do their own role. We come out with multinational instruments or bilateral or multilateral treaties. And at the same point in time, there are ISO 14,000 or ISO 9,000 kind of certifications which are given by the voluntary associations. But the maximum force which comes is from the customers themselves, the consumers. Do they really take a dimension when they are making a choice that they do take into consideration something more than the product itself? Is it being paid attention to? And if that's what they start doing, the companies are forced, isn't it? Because what Pranshu said was that people are now ready to punish you or reward you depending on which side of the table you are. If you are environmentally conscious company, I'm going to reward you, but if you're on the other side, I'm going to punish you also, because the consequences have started visible to the society. So what I thought was, since most important thing what happens is, can I embed these messages? And not only embed messages, but embed them into such a way that people pay attention to it. And if they don't pay attention to it, and if it's not visible to them, it's of no use. And so, of course, what this has been discussed, that these issues are going to play a major role in customer choices. So let's leave this one. So businesses did respond. They came out with models which are environmentally friendly models. Now, I won't go into the issue of greening or greenwashing, because that's a debatable issue. So even if it's a greenwashing, let's still accept that, because till the time we don't have researchable results or some conclusive evidences, then it's very difficult to go and say that's a greenwashing or it's a it's greening, genuine greening. But are people able to make rational choices? And this one slide, I was trying to show it to my class also today morning. And human beings make choices like this. And that's a real problem, isn't it? Because somehow we, when we keep making choices in our daily life, we don't necessarily pay attention to a lot of dimensions which we should be taking into account when we have a larger issue. And the larger issue when becomes, the problems with sustainability is the time horizons are very long. Stakeholders are multiple, dimensions are so many, and human beings have got limited capacity of assimilation of information from the market or whatever they look at and make a decision which is a logical, rational decisions. Otherwise, each one of us, we should be happy to contribute towards our pension funds. Each one of us, we should be happy to take health insurance. Each one of us should be invest some money in the future. It makes sense. But then, given a chance, we don't want to do it. The reason is because consequences happen after a very long time lag. And if they happen after a time lag, human beings really don't get concerned about those consequences. We'll see it later. That's kind of a argument or a logic which our mind or heart starts giving. So these people now, if my objective is to make myself fit, then I should be taking stairs also rather than taking the escalators. But we are not able to do that. So even if a company comes out with a great product, but what matters is the last mile connectivity. I have come out with a product which is highly environmentally friendly product, very socially conscious product. But can I really go and convince my customers? And it's customers, another problem with now if we put ourselves into the shoes of customers, when we go and buy anything, we go a lot with our own perceptions as well. And these perceptions play a major role in deciding whether the person would get convinced of what is being conveyed or not. And this last mile connectivity has got this perception issue, and that's what they say. Even if I got the complete bridge has been built up, but then what matters is the last mile. If that's not connected, there's no use of. So government might come out with policies. We might sign multilateral or bilateral treaties. We may come out with great business practices or environmentally friendly products. But can I convey it? That's a very important. I don't know how many of you know a product called TiVo. Anybody heard of TiVo? Now TiVo product failed. Failed in the sense when it was introduced in the market, it failed. And when the company decided that we are going to come out with TiVo, the share prices of the company went like anything. And they said, oh, that's going to be a great product. When it was introduced in the market and failed, researchers like us, when we did that analysis, what we found was there was nothing wrong with the product. The question was how it was communicated. And now that starts playing a very important role because how people are going to look at that. And this is, I thought I'll show you a few messages which the way companies are trying to give these messages to their prospective customers. And now it's a different thing whether those messages are perceived by those customers or not. But what I've seen is that a lot of emphasis now being given on advertisements or media and very innovative things which have been happening in this sphere. And what Pranshu was saying about closed loop productions. Now closed loop production is when within the system what I have been able to do is that whatever waste is being produced that goes back into the production system, either it goes back into the production system or it goes back to the nature, gets degraded or degraded and goes back into the natural resources. So that's a closed, very simply speaking. And I remember one of the waste which get produced when we go and do exercise in a fitness club is, what would be the waste? The energy which we generate. Because we go and do an exercise for 30 minutes on a treadmill or on a bicycle. And I remember this early morning, 6 o'clock, when I used to go to a gym and I'd say, oh, 300 kilocalories, that's what I have burnt. Then we think from a different perspective. Burnt means what? I have wasted these 300 kilocalories. And this was an energy which could have been used. Now, this is an open loop production system in which something which is being generated is of use, but it's not being used in the system. It just gets dissipated. Okay? And can we go and think about messages like this? And that's a hotel in Copenhagen who started saying that we offer a free meal to our guest who is able to produce electricity for the hotel on an exercise bike attached to a generator. The guest will have to produce at least 10 watt hours of electricity, roughly 15 minutes of cycling for someone of average fitness. They will then be given a meal vouchers worth $36.
So imagine now a situation where the gym starts paying you the money rather than you paying money to the gym. That's a completely a different business model, requires different thinking altogether. There are two reasons behind it. One is now we have started realizing that closed loop production systems are possible. This energy which was being otherwise getting wasted goes back into the system. And the second thing is energy prices have skyrocketed, are really going up like anything. And when the energy starts becoming costly, then these kinds of technologies starts becoming viable. And so your now that's what they call piezoelectricity. When you generate your energy from your footfalls, and there are a lot of companies even thinking about that, where you have got a high footfall, why can't I go and generate energy there? And even dancing floors, that's they all. So how do you go and give the, now this is a very straight message, okay fine, I'll give you the money for this, because that's a very tangible benefit which I look out of it. Similarly, I know when star rating products which are being sold in the market for energy efficiency, star rating is one, but if I can convert that into some tangible number, oh, this is what you save in terms of your energy consumption, 25%, that's what he was saying, goes into when people consume that particular, or when they use that particular product. So if I can see a direct message which comes to me that I'll be benefited, human beings have got very strong thing, they'll behave on that. Then again, the competitors, when you promote a product, now in good old days, or even I would say 10 years back, people will promote it using the functionality. So this is the functionality I've got. Now this is not what it is now today. This is Microsoft Internet Explorer 10 is the most energy efficient browser. Uses about 18% less power than Chrome and Firefox. And if you go and read that says we would save enough energy to power 10,000 US households. Now this is what I'm still saying is highlighting those points which are able to put things into some tangible perspective. So now, of course, people would start selling their products not just because of the functionality, but also something like this. This was an old advertisement I used to see in the newspaper in India. Videocon introduces India to eco-logic technology. Now, and now if you see, that's the images. That's for the future generations. They'll start showing. In fact, sustainability or greening has undergone a massive change. I remember in 90s, a message used to be, we used to show our old forest and all kinds of, and the earth as if we were inheriting from our future, our ancestors, and we said, no, we have the responsibility of passing on this earth to our future generation. This is what a message used to be in 90s, but in the 2000s, the message completely changed. Now we started saying, we did not inherit this earth from our ancestors. Rather, we have borrowed it from them. And it's a moral obligation on us that we need to give it back to them, either in the manner in which or intact fashion we borrowed it, or in a better situation, or it's a better condition. So now the future generation starts playing a much important role in the messages. My daddy makes machines that blow clean air for other machines to work better. Or my daddy makes air conditioners that keep buildings cool and the world green. Now this kind of a message, when I remember Pranshu was saying that you need to build a connect with your customers. Now this is not just you're buying a product, okay. Patagonia, the company which he was mentioning, in Patagonia there was a research which was done, it was a case study, and one of the researchers went and asked some lady employee, what made you to participate so passionately in the green initiative taken by Patagonia? This lady says, oh, I'm not just an employee, I'm a mother. And I did this because of my identity as a mother. Now that's a different kind of mindset with which you start working. So perhaps you need to go and connect with your customers, not just as customers, but as responsible citizens. That if you buy my product, which is...
Even Argentina, and if you take the same survey in Brazil, you have this as a big amount of people to say, yes, I would love to, but I don't. And the problem is something what is related to this behavior is that you need to find a way, and that's why theory is so important to support our research on it. Okay, I have to compare what you say and what you do. And then you have to be able to identify what is the gaps between what I say and what I do. And then there's a lot of examples of this in the literature that we could use to improve how we could measure effectively this kind of behavior. And as Professor Kumar said, we are just touching this. This is a very brand new thing that we're working on. And one of the points that I would like to tell you that if you look for Brazil is the biggest recycler of aluminum cans in the world. And then you can imagine, wow, they have such their consciousness about sustainability. This is the other side. This is a way that people for long come that they can make money. So this is two different aspects of the same situation. So back to your question, you must be able to identify this gap between what I say and what I do. One of the best examples I saw is from one survey that was made into a supermarket in Brazil, but the supermarket for low-income people. And instead of ask about the behavior of the people that were answering the questionnaire, the question was made about, do you know someone that... So there is a way for you to avoid this kind of social desirable behavior. So I know people that do this, or most of the people don't do this. So there is a way that the people can wear the shoes of this sustainability. And then all the stuff that we see about sustainability, about green products, must take this into consideration. And just to close my comment, I'm supervising one doctoral dissertation in Brazil that is studying the water consumption. Water is a huge problem for us in Brazil, especially in Sao Paulo city, where we have 18 million inhabitants. And one of the initiatives that the water company did was a contest amongst condominiums to give awards to the condominium that reduces most the water consumption. If you take this from a basic perspective of marketing, you are motivating people to consume less, which goes on the same way what Nokia is doing. But the worst thing is, after 3 months period of the contest, they keep consuming more than they consumed before, even if you take out the seasonality. So we need to find a way to touch it in a permanent way, not only in these waves of things. I hope I have answered your question.
I'd just like to add, look at it from a bit different perspective, which is, same person behaves in a different way, put in a different context. So a person wouldn't recycle, he would say that he would ideally like to recycle in India, but he doesn't. But the person moves to another country where the recycling infrastructure is good, he would actually recycle. So I think a lot of things are context dependent. And the four things at least that we Nokia kind of practice to make sure that behavior actually moves is that first of all make it possible for him to actually take a step. Until there is a good enough possibility, he's not going to do it. Make it really easy so that it's not, okay, if I have to recycle an old phone, I have to go miles to go and drop it. It's not going to happen. If there is an incentive, in most cases, can there be an emotional incentive? A more satisfactory one rather than a financial incentive, because that's a very short one. And then all sorts of information which are needed for him to make that sort of decision. So if we can kind of create a context which would, help him do what he really aspires to do, I think it can be done. And we have seen, especially in our old phone recycling campaign, we have seen big shifts in consumer actually taking the step and recycling.
Just one second. The first question was that attitude and behavior. Now, what happens is that I have seen in quite a lot of things is, no doubt people do say that willingness to pay, that they do have willingness to pay, but at the end of the day when they go and buy that, not necessarily they pay that or they're ready to pay that. There was this sustainable forest management issues which started coming back in early 90s. And then these wood companies, they came together and formed an association called Forest Stewardship Council, which would certify a product that if it's a FSC certified product, that means the wood has come from an area which is a sustainably managed forest. And a lot of companies started selling those FSC certified product with this expectation, because they thought part of the cost, which is an additional cost towards the production of this, will be able to pass on to the customers, and customer would be ready to pay a premium on this. But what he was saying was that in 97, 98, 99, in fact there were a lot of surveys which were done, and what they found was the people did say they'll be ready to pay a premium, but that's not what exactly was happening in the real life. But now here's a catch now. In 2003, I did one research in which I looked at the companies which were selling FSC certified products. And believe me, I could get numbers which were 16,000. 16,000 companies dealing in FSC certified products. And today I know very well that in fact maybe hardly 5-10% would be left out now. Almost 90% of them, they use FSC certified wood. Now what is that which I made them? If the customers were not ready to pay them premium, but still there was something which was making the companies to come and do that. Now what happens is, it's one part of the story is with the customer pay me a premium, but the another part of the story starts becoming is what we call them as in diffusion processes is called mimetic processes. That I want to be mimetic in the nature that if somebody else has done it, my chances of adopting that practices go up. So I have one variable, how many people before me have done it. Now, if few companies started doing it because that's what they thought it's a good thing, now other companies also started doing it. The reason is because now there's not a fear of getting reward, but there's a fear of getting punished. Okay, that's what he was saying. Either the customer would reward you or they'll punish you. If they're not rewarding you, I'm worried about punishment also. Because if my other competitor is selling at the same rate but has got one dimension extra, and perhaps he'll capture the market and I'll be wiped out of the market. So I also want to go and do that. And after some time, then again what you have is you reach at a different equilibrium. And you were here and whole of a market reaches that at equilibrium. It happens. The second question, what you were saying was that the moment you get the reward back, people rebounce back. Believe me, I wasn't saying just the reward. What I was saying was, can you inbuild into the product itself or the service itself so that the benefits are tangibly visible to the customer? And if they're visible and they are durable, so the two things which you were saying was, they should be durable and they should be visible. It's not that you give something today and tomorrow you say, I'm going to go back. Until unless the person has reached an equilibrium in terms of the consumption patterns, the rebouncing happens, because we are very good on that. 31st of December, every year we make so many of resolutions. And first we do.
And Mr. Thank you, everyone.